you've ever tried a parallel third harmony? How many of you don't know what I mean by a parallel third? Don't know what that means? Okay. So if I was, a parallel third is basically the same. It's, you take the melody line, and then you just play the whole thing up a third, or down a third. And if you were trying to get below the melody, because remember, if the melody is high, you'll hear that.
Yes.
So if you're trying to hide behind the melody, it's often better, instead of playing up a third, you play down a sixth. Right, okay. So those, but it's basically the same thing. It's either a parallel, the same line, this has the same shape. You use the diatonic scale generally, the same scale that you're in, and you just push everything up. So it's an easy thing to do if you're like using a program. You'd enter the whole thing into your computer, you just highlight all the keys, and you just bring them all down 2 notes, and then guess what? You're right there on the whole thing. And that's what I did in this whole thing. I want to play through the old milk. We're going to use this as an example and give you some idea of for where I'm headed. First, so let's just learn the tune. Play through the tune a few times just to get it into our head. Old milk. That's the top line that you'd be reading. And I changed a few notes. There's a funny thing in there like da 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 da, which is really impossible and hard to do. It's silly, and I don't know why they put it in there, and so I took it out. Yeah, it's like everybody hates that part of the tune, right? I don't know what to do.
I get more comments.
Oh yeah, I've got more comments here. All right, so let's just read. Da 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 da. 1, ready, go. The rhythm changes at the end of these pieces, okay? And the structure of the tune is an A, and then an A prime, which is the same as A with a different ending, then a B, and then an A prime again, like the second ending of the whole thing. And then you repeat the whole thing. There aren't too many English country dance tunes that have that structure. There are a few. We're going to try to play a parallel third harmony line. If you have a really good imagination, you can just, let's look first of all for the third below. You can easily imagine, if you have a great imagination, you can imagine just sticking an extra line at the top of your staff. Okay, and now you're playing. Ignore the line, erase the line on the bottom, and stick the line, another line up above, and then play the whole thing again. Okay, but just using those notes. Now, I've done it. You know, I don't have that sort of vivid imagination, but I work with somebody who does that, and this woman plays all sorts of different recorders. I mean different whistles, penny whistles, and so there's an F penny whistle, and a D one, and a C one, and she reads everything in D. But if she's trying to figure out, oh, how do I play this? It's really in F, and she's trying to sight read a piece of music. She has a trick. Oh, I imagine it to be in the bass clef with extra 2 lines over the top. Really, honestly, and then she's able to do this. So if you have that sort of visual memory and that sort of thing, it's something you can work on and get, you can do this. But it's instant parallel third below if you don't want to even use your ear. Now, I've done that for you here. Okay, so if you look at the second line down, it's the same thing, same notes, just transposed down 2 notes in the scale. Okay. And so a lot of times you'll find that it sounds great to do it that way, okay? Not always, but sometimes it will be great. And we're going to try to find today the rules for when it sounds good and the rules for when it sounds bad. And that will help you motivate your choices later on. It'll give you some sort of intuition about when I'm going to try this. You can also just play it and then figure out when it sounds bad. So what I'd like is for a couple people to be playing melody. And can I get you to play melody? Over in this corner here, and I want the rest of you just to play a harmony line, and I need the chords, okay? The chords are important, so I need your piano there on the bass on the chords. Because if you just play the 2 together, you're actually not going to be able to tell if it sounds good or bad without the chord structure behind it, all right? Okay, and then the rest of you go ahead and play the harmony line, and when you think something sounds bad, raise your hand, flag it, figure out where you think it's going to be, and when we get to that point, we'll stop, okay? We'll see how much of this can we get through this in this tune before it starts to sound bad, okay? All right, so a couple people on melody, and a couple people, if you want to just listen, that's great. If you want to play a harmony line, we just need somebody to hear what that sounds like. 1, ready, go. I saw like 2 hands go up at one note. Where was that?
Last and under the second string.
Second and B.
Okay.
The B
The what?
against the D chord on bar 8.
We got, okay, so what bar, so we're in the first ending on bar 8. Okay,
Yeah.
so can we just play like bars 5, 6, 7, and 8? Up to the very end of that whole thing? And can you play melody? I just want, who raised their hand? Can you play the harmony line here?
Sure.
Okay, and let's just listen to this to see if we can all hear it. Because I think when you're playing, sometimes you don't listen quite so well. 1, ready, go. We need the bass notes. You hear that note here?
Yeah.
Oh, that doesn't work so well. Okay, so flag that. Okay, there's an example where it doesn't work. Now, was that the only example you heard in the whole part of this?
No, I thought it was.
And then the whole
The second
Yeah,
ending.
that's the only one that.
That's only, yeah, on the first
It
day it
worked
is.
okay with me.
Okay, now, so the other thing you can do is transpose instead of to the third below, you can transpose to the third above or the 6th below. Okay, that's what the next line, the third line is. So we've only, if I was going to like take out a pencil and I'd circle a note that didn't work. Okay, I'd listen and I'd go, can't stand this note here. What am I going to do? I'm going to change it, okay? Okay, so you have a couple structures and it's that B against the melody, okay? All right, and if you have a pencil, if you want a pencil to make a circle of these notes that are just like terrible, grab so just, if you want to play or you want to listen, and so the thing we're into the 6th down now. And then again, I can have you play it, people in here play some melody for me,
Okay.
and I need your chords. Yes, ready, go. Nice. It actually sounds a little bit like gospel music that way.
D6.
Huh?
It's a D6.
Okay, so let's go through systematically. Let's just do one measure really slowly. Da, 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 just like that, okay? Just listen and flag which are the notes that are bothering you. 1, ready, go. Stop. What's bothering you? F sharp, okay? Circle it.
It's kind of cool though.
Yeah, well, yeah. It's cool, right? That's cool. That's cool. Okay, the F sharp is not working so well. Okay, let's look at the second measure. Same thing. Nice and slow. 1, ready, and go. That sounds okay. All right. All right. Third measure. 1, ready, go. That might work, okay? That might, what do you think? Should we do it again?
measure 3.
What do you think?
C sharp.
What do you think? Okay, I didn't hear anything that's particularly. So if you'll look at the number, just in those first four bars that we have, and look at the number of places that we've circled, then you'll find that there's a lot of places where you can play the 6th or you can play the 3rd below. There's a lot of common ground. Okay? All right, let's go on. Okay? So we're going back to measure 5 now. Now measure 5 is exactly the same as measure 1, so we know what that is. Those F sharps don't sound very good. The next bar after that is just like we've had before, and that was kind of okay. Let's play the first ending. Okay? Those 2 bars in the first ending. 1, and ready, and go. The F sharps in the 3rd line down, okay? What we're going to do is try to adjust them. So don't play it. What note could I play instead of F sharp there? That would
Where?
in the 3rd line down, in the first measure. There's like
Measure 9.
no, the very first measure.
Oh, okay.
Those F sharps in the third
How
line.
about a G?
Yeah, let's just play a G instead, okay? So just move them, transpose them up to a G instead, okay? All right? Just transpose those up to a G. Those were the only ones. And then the same thing happens in bar 5. Okay? And then the places that we found that didn't work very well in the 3rd below, the only place that we noticed that was really terrible was that B note in the 8th measure, right? So play Play something else. What else could you use? You wallpaper experts. Yeah, you play A, you can play something else. It's in the D chord, okay? All right. Let's play for the first, we'll play two A1s, okay? So A1 and then A1 again, but I want you to play the parallel third below, and then I want you to play the parallel sixth below the second time through, okay? Yep. Okay, all right. So just making those adjustments we talked about, just make those adjustments, and I want to hear the second line, and then when we repeat, we're going to play the third line instead, and take the first ending both times, okay? 1, ready, go! See what you think, and adjust if it doesn't sound like it's going to work. But that's so that's using your ears as your guide, and there's no sort of theory behind the whole thing. Let's try to figure out what was happening with those notes that we flagged. Okay, we like the F sharps against the G chord, okay, and we didn't like the B on the D chord. Is that right? And those other things. So if you look at it from like the note of the scale, that's not going to be helpful. But if you look at it from the perspective of what chord you're on, you'll find out that some of the notes sound just fine and some of them don't so well. Okay? So see if we can find any sort of patterns. Let's to continue that. Let's go on with this part of the music. Okay? And see what happens. Yeah, this one's going to be really. Yeah, this one's going to be really fun. Right? So let's play the second line down the same way again. We can do a melody again to just help us out, and do the same thing. Second line now on the beat part of the music. It starts with the E minor chord.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So all you all are on the C note to start with against the E minor chord. You know where we are? Okay. 1, ready, go. So many hands should go up at this point. Let's play the line below, okay? It's the third line. Okay, and then we'll go back and look at the things in more detail, okay? 1, ready, go. Which one sounds generally better?
The sixth.
Yeah, that one, the sixth below, sounds better. In the first part of the music, the one that sounds most harmonically locked is the first part, parallel third below, not the parallel sixth below, okay? So sometimes different types of music will lend themselves, or different sections of music will lend themselves. Let's try to figure out overall what's happening chordally. Why is it sometimes the sixth note down below, this parallel sixth sounds better, and sometimes the parallel third sounds better in general. When you don't have to adjust it quite so much. Anybody finding any rules? What?
It depends on what the melody is on, what degree of the scale, because
Of the scale?
of
Okay.
the chord.
Of the chord, right. That's the key. That's the key. It's not what note of the scale you're on. It's on that note represents what note of the scale, what part of the scale. Sorry. Chord.
So if
Yeah, what note in the scale?
if the melody is the one of the chord, like in this case E,
Yeah.
then you don't want to have a third below.
So in this case, meaning right at the top of the B part.
Right, right.
So on an E minor chord.
Right.
Okay, so we have an E minor chord.
And if the third below is a C, and that's not a chording, it's in fact a half step away from the note that's in the
Right,
paper. So it
right.
sounds horrible.
Right. So your E note is the tonic of the chord. Okay, it's the tonic of the chord. Parallel third below, it gets you onto a note which is going to be not in the chord anymore. That's in general. So the way it works with triads, and this is the whole general rule, is that you have notes that are parallel thirds apart for the two bottom notes. Like let me just show you here. So like if I was in the key of G as I am here, okay, then if I'm playing a G chord, it's a skip. There we go. That's the third note. Skip. There we go. And then I have a wider interval where I've got two extra notes before I get back to the G. Okay? If I've got those wide intervals and I'm going to span that wide interval in the chord, then that note that I'm using as a parallel third is not going to fit anymore. Does that make any sense? I need to say this again.
Say
okay?
yes.
I need to say this again. So here's the note of my melody, okay? And I'm going to do a parallel third below, okay? From your perspective, you're a parallel third below, okay? All right, so where is this in the interval of the chord that I'm on, okay? If this note here is going to be in one of those places where I have a note, skip, note, skip, note of the chord, that is the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth degree of the scale, no problem, okay? Because a parallel third will work. I'll be on something which is in the chord. But if it's in one of those sections near the top end of the scale, okay, then I've got those two notes in the chord, right? So if I've got playing a G chord, it's up to D, and then I have an E and an F sharp that I'm not playing, and they're not going to fit with the chord anymore. So if I'm spanning that with a third, then it's not going to work. Maybe this is a little arcane. I can describe it a little bit with a piano if you want to see it visually. Yeah.
Seems like it's just, we should avoid 6 and 7.
Yeah, avoid the 6 and the 7. That's 6 and 7. If your parallel third is going to get you onto the sixth part, the sixth of the chord or the seventh of the chord, it's probably going to splat, right? Okay, so that's another way of thinking about it, all right?
Unless it's a five chord, in which case it's the dominant note.
But think about the 5. Think about the 5 chord. Think of where your melody note is, okay, and then think of the chord that's underneath it, not what degree of the scale you're in the whole piece.
Yeah.
That's a way of. So in other words, that's kind of like a distinction you're making. Is this lost to people? It's a. Okay.
I have a question.
Yep.
If you end up wanting to keep a dissonance, but it's not on a stressed beat, does that make a difference?
No, if it's a flyaway
Like
thing,
a
there's
passing tone or
that's
something?
no problem. No problem. If you don't last not very long, you don't have to worry. Your ear just smooths out all the little dissonances. You just heard, the Brandenburg Concerto.
Yeah.
There's Bach has got all these dissonances floating around all the time, and you just blow right through it, and it sounds cool. And then sometimes you can lean into it on purpose. Oh, I'm gonna make this dissonant, but it'll be an intentional dissonance rather than, oops, I just didn't know. It's just one thing to do. Your ear will get better the more you practice this, okay? But it's just maybe the way of looking at it, okay? So do you want to try it? So there's 2 tricks that you can have. One of them is you adjust the notes, okay? And the other trick you have is that you pop back and forth between a parallel third and a parallel sixth, okay? And so if you find that, hey, one of them works really well, I'm going to come along and we have some of these notes that are not very good. With that 6th down, we said that F sharp, for example, wasn't very good. You could adjust it up, but you can also just go up, play a line until, I'm going to avoid these F sharps here, but I'm going to then hop up onto the parallel third line, and at some point I'm going to pop back down to the parallel 6th line again, just to kind of get away from those problem notes. So you might do a harmony line, which is some mixture of being far away from the melody and being closer to the melody, just depending on how things go, okay? These are things you can kind of navigate by ear, try stuff out. It's really easy to record the melody on an iPhone or something else like this, play it back and play along with it and say I'm starting to get some intuition about when I can do that. Okay. So what makes an old mill, why does that make that third work so well at the very beginning? It's because you're on the third note of the scale, all right? You're not near the top end of the scale. da 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 da, third, fourth, and fifth, third, da da da, in the G chord. Okay, so you're nowhere near the top end where it gets problematic. Then the next chord, dun da da da, you're on the third note of the chord. Again, it's an E minor chord, so the G is the third, okay, of that E minor chord. Third, fourth, and fifth, third, fourth, and fifth, da da da, and then the next chord you go to a C chord. Oh, guess what? Third, fourth, and fifth, third, fourth, and fifth, da da da. So it all kind of gloriously works out, and this is why I chose this particular piece, because it really sort of matches how you can sort of find those notes, okay, intuitively. Does that make some sense?
Yeah.
Okay, and when it starts to fall apart, when you start getting down to a place like at the end on the tonic note, then, oh no, now I'm in this place where the third below that is going to put me into the 6th or 7th note of the chord, and that's problematic. That's not going to sound pretty good. Okay, just things to think about. Let's try this with a simpler tune. So if you can find Dusty Miller, I want to just have you play around with harmony lines and see if you can find parallel harmony lines, and we're going to go around. Come on, ready, go! Everybody? Yeah, I think so. It's a pretty common tune. Just look it over a little bit, okay? Think about the notes of the scale that you're on. I mean the notes and relative to the chords that you're on. Da, 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 that part of it, okay? Da, 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 da. You're starting on which note? You're on a G chord, right? G chord. So what are the notes? If you were to say G and work your way up the scale from the G, you're on what the melody starts on which note of that? 3. So parallel whiches are going to work. You're up near the top end, way up at the top end. The parallel third down gets you down to a G, so you should be fine, right? 3, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. Again, I'm numbering these things based on the tonic of the chord that I'm on, not the tonic of the overall scale of the piece. Okay. So now I'm going to go to a new chord. The next chord is a D chord. Okay. All right. So again, I'm going to start my numbering now at D. Okay. So the notes, the first note that you have in the melody is an F sharp. What is that in the now new numbering system of the D chord? 3. So 3, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. Now I'm in a new chord. 3, 5, 7, 6, 5. Does it make any sense?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, all right, okay. So again, we're way up at the top of the scale there, so those numbers work really well if you go down, okay? Because you won't be spanning as wide intervals, okay? All right, the whole thing will work very well. So that tells you that you should be doing a parallel of what? 3rd or 6th below? Third below, good, okay. Then da 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 da. It's a G chord. I'm on a D note. That's what?
1. Oh, D. 5. D.
Yeah, with the G chord, right? Da da da. But it's on a D note. It's on a D note. Okay, and then.
Peter passes
Yeah, okay, when I get down to the end, da 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 da, 2, 1, 1 becomes problematic, remember? Okay, 3, 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. Oh, maybe that's not going to work so well with a parallel thing. And then I'm down to 5 again. I jumped over all that messy stuff. So I just have to maybe correct the time that I'm on the tonic of the chord, because then the parallel third won't go down. Play it, okay? Just play by yourself and see if you think that that's going to be the case. Just find the parallel third by yourself. Just do this amongst yourself, and we're not going to all do it together. And see if you think what notes are going to be problematic. Try a modifying harmony. You want to try modifying?
really want to
Can you
try.
play melody for me here? Okay, can you do the same thing? 1, ready, go. So what did you do there? That's beautiful.
I don't know.
You don't know?
Well, I never thought, I always get caught in the 6th and made a rule about it, and now there's a rule, and
Now
so
there's-
I'm not hitting the notes I don't want to hit.
Yeah, okay.
This is amazing.
Oh, well, good. Oh,
You got it, right?
success, so if I got one person, this is okay, I'm good, everything else is just gravy at this point, okay. Good, all right, good, so that's kind of the area, okay, so if that means something to you. You know, you also were doing something which is based off of horn harmonics. It's a harmonic sequence, you'll hear this with old Baroque music because they didn't have valves in their French horns at this point. And I don't know if you know about the whole tradition of French horns. If you're trying to get a close series of harmonics, what you want to do is to use the high end of the harmonic series, okay? And so, for example, every time if you have an air column and you make it vibrate all as one thing, like the air goes in, the air goes out, both ends. That's called the fundamental frequency. If the air goes in only to the part way, and it vibrates in two pieces, you know, there's motional such that the pressure would go up on this side and then down on the other side, so that there's a kind of like a difference. There's a place in the middle where the air is not even moving. Okay, and so it vibrates in two pieces. You get a second harmonic on that. And then if you make it vibrate in three pieces, you get a third harmonic, and four pieces. Every time you double it, so from 1 to 2, you make it vibrate in 2 pieces instead of 1, you're doubling the frequency. And so the way it sounds on the piano, or on the thing, is if you might have a fundamental frequency down here, okay, and then the next one that you can get with the horn would be this one. It's a whole octave above it, right? You can't play much melodies going bum, 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 bum. It's not very interesting. If you want to be able to play ba-da-da-da-da, the sequence has to get closer together. So remember, if you double 2, you'll get to 4, but there must be a 3 in the middle somewhere that you could use, and that turns out to be a 5th. Okay, so here are the notes. That's the 5th. Then you get an octave. That's 4, so it's now a double of a double. It's 2 octaves. And then there must be a third. And then there's the next harmonic, which is an octave above the one we've already used, so it's another 5th up above. And then the next one was like here, which we never use. We try to avoid that 7th harmonic. And then 8 is a double again. And then is where the horns would actually be playing. They'd be playing all these notes up here. Okay, because those are all good notes. You can get them on the horn, but you're only using these very high harmonics. But what happens when you start going down the scale and you try to play harmonies? That's a terrible note. You can't use it. So you never use that note. That's the 7th note of the scale. It's in that dead zone, you know, where the harmonies are terrible. And you have to go down to this note instead. So what do the horn harmonies sound like? And look, they do a wide interval, which is what you did. And then if they go down any further, they'll do this one. Okay, and that's pretty much the lines that you got, okay? So that's in your hearing. You probably listened to some Baroque music at one point in your life. Maybe earlier this afternoon. You know, and you heard the horn section, you've got that kind of in your head, but that's a great strategy for getting rid of that area. Just jump across it. You make an adjustment. I mean, you just went down. You dove deep. She dove deep to get down into the 6th range, right? And that's a great strategy. Or you could just kind of parallel, or you could say, oh, I'm going to just abort this whole process right now and do a wallpaper. Okay. All right. Okay. And I think that's a great stretch. So who wants to try an abortive process of a parallel thing with a wallpaper? Who would like to illustrate that? Yeah, go ahead. All right. Okay. 1, ready, go. What a great illustration. Thank you. Yes, exactly. Yes, perfect. Perfect. You see what she was doing there? It's like that's so that all these other. Anybody else got another strategy using any of the tools that we have in our toolkit already for what happens if you think, oh, I might be getting into the problem zone? Space. Yeah. Stop playing. Who stopped the note? You said, yeah, right. Stop playing. Okay, that's another example.
Double.
All right? Let's just jam a little bit here. Think about it some more, dude. Play around with the whole tune a couple more times. Play around with the harmony lines. We'll have a few more minutes, and then we'll see. Maybe somebody will become more courageous and share with us again. Okay? But just let's play it. Experiment around. See if you can come up with a line. We'll play through the tune two more times, and then see if anybody else wants to share. Okay? 1, ready, and go. Did that help anybody? Anybody else courageous enough to try to show me something? Yeah? No?
Can I try a harmony on the B part?
Yeah, sure.
I don't think it's gonna go as well, but.
Okay. So on the B part. 1, ready, go.
That was like evasive maneuvering. I feel
It was avoiding collisions.
Yeah.
Defensive driving.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
But it didn't feel like, my goal is really to be able to like follow the melody exactly, and I feel like I'm like,
So let's break it down. Let's do it slowly. So she was on, you played the melody. Da, 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 da. The parallel line is da, 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 da. Okay, what is that? I'm on the which note of the chord for that? On the 6th note. Danger zone, okay, defensive driving. What did you do
I
instead?
went to the 5.
Went to the 5, okay, so play those two, just that bar, just together, okay? 3, 4. Ya-da-da-da, instead of ya-da-da-da. Is that making some sense? Yeah? Okay, all right. What's the next bar you're doing here? Let's just those 2 bars.
Okay.
1 and 2 and 3. Yeah, it doesn't sound so bad.
Why was it okay? Okay.
Okay, supposing you were going to bail and not use it, what would you use instead?
I don't know. A D.
Something in the A minor.
Something in A minor.
Try the E. Okay,
Okay.
try the E. 1, ready, and go. This takes some practice. It takes some sort of like thought. Make out a line for yourself and really just try it and juice around it a little bit. But you've got an intuition, okay? Some of you have an intuition of what's going to work. You realize, oh, it's going to not work. I'm going to make a slight adjustment. Yeah. What I suggest you do is to record a melody line. Find a tune that you want to do. Record a melody line.
Yeah.
Practice playing parallel thirds against it.
Yeah.
Okay, and making the adjustments, figuring out where it is like, oh, this is not working, and you will just build up an intuition for how you can do this thing. And you'll hear it. You don't have to analyze it if you don't want to. The analysis is something that if you're trying to figure out what is the logic of this. Oh, I've been doing this all the time and I keep splatting. Well, there is a little bit of logic to it, and that's kind of what I tried to describe today. And so maybe that will inform your intuition. Just that knowledge of that logic. But that's not by any means the only path to the end. And honestly, it's not the path that I go through. I'm like you, I grew up singing. Okay, and so it's just in my ear. It's not for everybody. And if it's not for everybody, then I have to find a different pathway to get there. If you already have that as an intuition for which notes to avoid, great, use it. You don't have to learn this sort of stuff. Okay? Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do something different tomorrow. You have been such a great class.
This is
I have
so
been
great.
so